So I will share with you. And I have a few tiny bit of notes just so I can make sure to conceptualize this accurately, because what it leads into is so gorgeous and so kind of provocative, and I think a really important mirroring for all of us as women as we continue to confront and be in relationship. And although these are never quite the right words, like cleanse or purify any remaining places of stuckness or density around our relationship to the cosmic and mortal co-creative principle of the masculine. So, okay, essentially, and this is where I have a few notes, the ladder of abstraction is simple. It simply states that the higher up the ladder you go, the more abstract the language or thought or idea is. I would say that it's like the further up the ladder of kind of conceptualization of something, the more complex, the more spiritual, the more mystical the idea tends to become. The lower you are on the ladder, the more the concrete the idea, the thought form, or the language is. So I also want to state that one is not better than the other. So for example, you don't want to spend all your time on the higher realms or the higher rungs of the ladder of abstraction because, and this is sort of where I can fall sometimes, it can become a little bit abstract, a little bit meta, a little bit complex. So there is great value in also being able to move with great facility and easefulness between the higher rungs of the greater kind of more meta abstraction and the lower rungs where things, albeit perhaps more dense, are also more concrete. So ideally, in our relationship to different concepts, and in this instance, I'll localize it and centralize it around the co-creative principle of the masculine, we want to have the easefulness to move from the lower, more concrete rungs all the way up through the cosmic and mystical aspects of how it is that what I refer to as the psychoerotic trinity of the feminine, our system, like our limbic nervous system, our sex, and our psyche meaning soul originally, hold the energetic imprint of the masculine, quote unquote. So, because this is obviously a little bit conceptual, and I totally get that, I have two examples that I'm going to use as metaphors. And oh my gosh, this is where this becomes so stunning and a little bit magical to me. So the first example I'm going to use is of a flower. And I'm going to use this metaphor to illuminate our relationship to our relationship to having relationships with men in the masculine. This is certainly not limited to erotic or romantic partnership or, exploration. This could certainly be true as we deepen into this particular metaphor or concept to a father and a daughter, two friends, siblings, as long as that contrasexual distinction between the masculine and the feminine is present in that relationship. So, a little backstory that starts to weave in these pieces very beautifully, and is that several months ago on Facebook, I saw a woman who I quite love, a friend and a colleague, post like an homage to her husband. And in this beautiful homage to her husband, the kind of key takeaway, kind of bold letters, was, I am the flower and he is the pot. And I thought, oh, that is so beautiful and that is so true. that if I am the flower, he is the pot. He is that which holds our, well, to continue that horticulture metaphor, like, and this is a little erotic as I think about it, but like our root ball. He's what holds our nutrients, our sense of self, deeply safe and like contained. It is a firm frame, a firm holding. And we need that. We need that kind of density and that holding and that fortitude around us, both with men and with our internal masculine, so that we may grow kind of tall and in our stalk and emanate the fullness of our flower. And I will share that post really stayed inside my system, not even consciously, but I was like, I am the flower, he is the pot. It's true, and it's beautiful, and it's so incomplete. So when I started to learn just yesterday about this concept of the ladder of abstraction, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I can understand what kind of lurked or lingered for me in this woman's post, in her statement of, I am the flower and he is the pot. And I can begin to understand through exploring the ladder of abstraction why, on a certain level, that felt to me, while beautiful and true, also diminishing of the true potency of the masculine. So if we are to continue this same metaphor, and I'm going to bring you through a series of ideas as we move up the rungs of the ladder of abstraction, and why this is such gold for the feminine, the awakening feminine, is because each step up the ladder of abstraction in this particular case requires that our system opens to a deeper and wider and more exalted understanding and honoring of the masculine. So we'll hear how this goes. Okay, so through this frame, we could say, I am the flower, he is the pot. This is very similar, by the way, to David Deda's principle that's widely held and understood, I think, from the way of the superior man. He used the metaphor of like, she is the river and he is the banks. And so let me touch on that for a moment. That's also very true, because without the fortitude of firm and sturdy banks of a river, that river will either gush and overflow, creating swampy mess, if the banks of the river are not sturdy and firm and lack fortitude and perhaps get a little bit saggy. It's like then we lose the elegance and we lose the rightful beauty of the river. Or if the banks of the river again become weakened and diminished and collapsed, then the other thing that can happen is that the river runs dry and we have an arid, rocky bed. So we can see in this example too that there's a corollary to being on one of the lower rungs of the ladder of abstraction. So let's see what happens when we go up the ladder of abstraction in this particular instance. Okay. I am the flower. He is the pot. I am the flower. He is the gardener. He is the one that walks around me, noticing if I need more nutriment, if I need to be placed a little bit in the shade or the sun, or if perhaps there are deadened leaves that need to be removed and pruned from my being. It may be that the gardener recognizes that the place where I'm located in the garden does not serve me at my most high and divine expression. And so with seeming violence, the shovel goes into the earth, the pitchfork goes into the earth, and we're kind of like lifted and kind of craned out of that particular place where we had been rooting into, only to be replaced, literally like placed elsewhere in the garden and kind of placed in with great firmness, and the dirt being packed around us so that we may arch, ever more beautifully for the sun or the rain. Moving up the ladder of abstraction. I am the flower. He is the seed. Without him, in this terrestrial world, I would not exist. If there was no seed, there would be no flower. I am the flower. He is the sun. He is that solar, golden, molten light that pours effortlessly his, like the golden royal codes of that warmth and that light into my being so that I may flourish and thrive, and without any effort simply open into the fullness and depth of my own expression. Highest rung in this instance of the ladder of abstraction. I am the flower. He is the holy cosmic architect and visionary. I existed first and foremost and eternally in the eye of the mind of the Holy Father, the divine masculine, the supreme architect of all that is, as he who carries the sight, the vision. This, of course, and I just want to name this, does not preclude the alchemical double helixing with the feminine that is required. I am just simply isolating, for the purpose of this teaching principle, the masculine aspect of that braid. So we can see here that in this case, the ladder of abstraction mirrors to us. It is the energetic and archetypal mirror that illuminates to us the set point of which we can truly hold the within, again, like the psychoerotic trinity of the feminine, our system, our sex, and our psyche. Psyche meaning soul. So it's like, can we go all the way up the ladder of abstraction to arrive at like the Holy Father, the cosmic and divine primal source, the primordial source that co-creates all that is? And then can we go back down the ladder of abstraction to recognizing that it is also true that I am the flower and he is the pot. But this becomes so important that we are able to move up and down. And this is just an example. I'm going to do a business example next so that we can have both of these dimensions kind of illuminated so that we understand like how potent it is that we don't get stuck or reified in a certain rung, in a certain set point in terms of understanding our relationship and how deeply and wholly the truth of where it is that we can truly hold and receive and recognize and see and honor and exalt the true terrestrial to cosmic spectrum of the co-creative principle of the masculine. Like, is there a place where we get stuck? When I talk about, I am the flower, he is the gardener. Like, he witnesses my growth and expansion and makes adjustments accordingly. That's a lot of visibility. That is a lot of vulnerability to allow ourselves to receive that level of witnessing and care and leadership and mastery. So for some of you, that might be like, I'm down with the pot, the gardener, and the seed, and as we move through, the sun might be challenging to hold, or it might be a relief that we can kind of allow the more divine dimensions also be real and true. But it's the invitation, and the reason why I wanted to share this is because it's such a beautiful mirroring. It's such a profound relationship to being intimate with what is so for you, for each of us. Okay, I'm going to peek before we go on to the business side just to see if there's any questions. Oh, I don't know if I can actually see. Oh, okay. Okay, I can't see so much, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, the next part is in business and money. Okay, so in business and money, we hear all the time that like from feminine entrepreneurs, I respect and honor the masculine in my business. I got a new laptop and I use funnels, and I have a team and they've built out systems and back-end structure for me because I know that the masculine, oh wait, hang on one quick second. Okay, that the masculine is the nonlinear systems. So there's all these women and who demonstrate their exaltation of the masculine through the integration of these nonlinear elements within our business, which are so important, of computers and systems and funnels and back-end strategists and accountants and all these things that are like the banks of the river that provide the containment and there's truth in this, these nonlinear dimensions, these systems and these structural components to our business so that we can, like the flower, kind of come forward with our genius, come forward in our deep feminine effulgence and emanation. And this is one of the denser rungs of the ladder of abstraction in terms of how it is that we can truly open to understand the fullness and the potency of the co-creative impulse of the masculine energetic. So now, as I did with flower, I will do with business so that we can begin to see where is our energetic set point, how deeply are we willing to open and see and recognize and exalt the masculine in this domain of our lives as well. So the next rung of abstraction in this lens would be money. And I'm just giving very high level examples. So there are women in business who have learned to open to receive money, lots of money in their business. That, and as I say that, it's like that can be a sort of challenging and confronting piece, because in some ways there can be, and I'll talk about this another time, a really deep chasm between women and the relationship to men and in their relationship to money. I call that the man-money split, and I see it all the time. However, it is also true that women who want or desire to receive money have to truly open and dilate their receivership channels. And that can be a really painful initiation. It's a true dilation of the feminine system. So there's a way that for women who go on the journey of being in approval of their desire for money, and I'll share why I feel like, well, let me say this differently. Let me name that as I kind of use and illuminate this particular example, it's because I feel like money is a masculine frequency. I'll share very simply, money, so what we say colloquially is we say cash is king. We don't say cash is the queen, cash is the empress, cash is the high priestess. Part of us knows cash is king. So if we want cash, we have to open, dilate to receiving the penetration in our receivership channels of the masculine. We could even say the king, although I don't want to go too deeply into the royal codex of some of these aspects archetypally right now. So I could say that women that are able to magnetize and hold, which is different than the feast and famine cycle, and hold, are moving up the ladder of abstraction in their relationship to the masculine in their businesses. Okay. Next place, and this might be the most confronting one, and this is where I'm going to weave us back to the beginning of this live stream. So here is what I said in the beginning of this live stream. I said once or maybe twice, when I received the guidance, another word I could say there would be intuition, to speak onto this principle of the ladder of masculine abstraction. So, and this is how I'm going to relate to the masculine in business, not just business, in any of our creative pursuits. This is subjective, this is personal. I am not saying this is what is so or right at all. For me, instinct is feminine. Instinct is like deep in my body and deep in my blood and my bones. Instinct is womb deep. For me, intuition is masculine. It's slightly external. It's exogenous. You could hear what I said in the beginning when I received the guidance. So when I look at this through a lens of Eros, as I do, I talk about receiving intuition as like the cosmic ejaculation of the gods that comes in through the crown. So, and this is, I'm going to kind of layer this. We're like going a little next level here. So we could even do like a little microdose ladder of abstraction and say that penetration at the lower rungs of the ladder of abstraction is very literal intercourse. It's penis in vagina, cock in pussy. It's like true fucking. Intercourse, lovemaking, but I'm talking about the actual like at its most elemental. And that penetration at the highest rung of the ladder of abstraction is through the crown. It's receiving the external guidance from God, prime creator, source, the divine masculine. For me, in my particular cosmology, and I'm not saying that this is what is so, that is a masculine ejaculatory thrust that I receive. So when I receive that cosmic ejaculation of intuition or idea, it is receiving the masculine, I don't know a better way of saying it, that cosmic ejaculation that then moves into my feminine beingness. I choose to submit to that intuition, and together we create the third thing, the alchemical third thing, the golden child, which is in this very, kind of contained instance is like, Gillian, do this live stream about the ladder of abstraction. I Google, what is the ladder of abstraction? Embarrassed by my own self. And then all of a sudden, all these pieces, it's like become anointed. There's revelation and there's insight that I know, because I can feel it, is in service on some level to the consciousness of this field that I'm holding and creating with and for each of you. So we had a little kind of slight divergence as I wanted to explain and illuminate how the ladder of abstraction kind of nests inside of itself by using an example of penetration. So it can be very literal, and then it can be the divine penetration through the crown. What's so beautiful about that particular illuminated ladder of abstraction is that we realize that when we are in the full recognition and remembrance of the masculine, that it's like the full front central channel of the feminine being is built and designed through our energy centers, through our chakras, to receive the seed of the masculine from root, from our sex, all the way up through crown. Again, looking at it a little bit through kind of the mystical mechanics of the ladder of abstraction in this instance. Okay, to return to business or any creative venture that we feel called, that's on our heart to create. So we can see that there's absolutely nothing wrong with being like, oh, I've got a rocking new laptop. That is a way that I let myself feel so supported by the masculine. And I have funnel contraptions, and I have systems, and I have like the riverbanks, the flower pot of these elements in my business or in my creative venture, in my artistry, in my genius, my mastery, so that I can feel supported. And it feels really good. But we can move further and further up so that we are in this crucible archetypally where we are co-creating with the masculine on higher and higher levels. And they don't just get more abstract when we move up, they become more mystical, they become more cosmic and more spiritual. And I feel like that is a really important piece to continue to presence and to continue to kind of invoke in and through our hearts, so that we are not unconsciously participating in this chronic degradation of men in the masculine to mean things like the pot for the flower, whilst that is true, or the systems and the nonlinear structures for our business, while that is indeed true. That there is so much more. And when the mirroring becomes effective for us, it's almost like an imago in a dream. I work very deeply with dreams with my clients, many of them. So it's like almost like a snapshot of where is your set point? Where is your personal set point in this ladder of exaltation is another word that we could use, before you reach a point of contraction or compression, or that your system like doesn't really truly and authentically to and for you open. That like that may be a little bit too much, or you've maybe be colluding with your own blindness, or you may be colluding with the way that we in the collective kind of, and I'll use a culturally very alive word right now, we quarantine men and the masculine to a certain frequency that serves us. It serves us egoically. It serves our templates of superiority and arrogance, because we're not willing to like feel the burn, to truly like let ourselves be in full recognition and full remembrance of the supreme co-creational nature of the masculine. So we reduce and we diminish and we keep them and that the archetypal energetic in a little bit of a cage, because it's safer for us. Because if we truly had to confront the level of creational pouring into and devotion and life force that men in the masculine have in our lives, and again, this is not just limited to romantic or erotic partnerships. It's like part of us would be devastated in that beauty. Part of us would have to move through such profound, throat chakra, profound remorse for colluding with the cultural narratives. Part of us would have to move through our own shame for the ways that we have participated in the belittling of men in the masculine. And there's nothing wrong with any of this, unless and until we know better. And part of you, at the level of soul, is in this group with me because you're ready to know better. And so I'm going to illuminate what comes through me. This particular principle and concept allowed the analytical ladies in the house to like be stimulated in terms of the mental gates. I'm aware of that. And I think it's important that we also allow ourselves to feel like, is this true for us? Nothing I will ever say or teach or model will I ever say, oh, this is right, this is what's so. I do think there's deep truth in this. I wouldn't invest time, energy, or money into creating a platform and cultivating these transmissions if I didn't think that they were of great value. And I understand also that there's going to be some inherent places of stuckness or density for all of us. And that's why we're here together. Okay. The ladder of masculine abstraction. And just an invitation to remember that there is no better like up or down. As I said, and when I was citing the example of penetration, a lot of women can more easily hold the penetration of the divine masculine, which is higher up on the rungs of abstraction, than it is for them to hold the energetic or physical penetration of the terrestrial man, the mortal, imperfect man, which is lower on the ladder of abstraction. So true union, true integration is when we can move with facility and easefulness up and down from the most concrete, the most dense, the most terrestrial, up through the most exalted, the most mystical or cosmic, the most divine. And that we have access and sight and vision, and that our heart is open to each one of those kind of energetic set points. Each one of those, it's like each rung is sort of like its own vista or its own vantage point. And together they form a constellation of wholeness, of what is actually true. And that may be different for each of us. So, I am feeling like I'm arriving at a place of quieting and completion. I'm just going to feel into if there's anything else I want to say or share. Solo live stream 02. Maybe I'll peek at the comments for just a moment just to see if there's any questions. Oh my gosh, many, many things here. Okay, I'm actually going to read this later because I can see that there's a lot there and I want to be able to be fully present. So I'll chime in the comments after this. Thank you, ladies. Oh, and if you're watching when it's not live, please just let me know however that feels good to you. And I will certainly be climbing in the comments and sharing thoughts and reflections. Such a pleasure to spend this time with you on a Sunday evening here in California. Sending love and grateful for all of you. Okay, speak soon.